Today in the episode, how many Tomahawks for Ukraine? The number revealed. That puts pressure on Germany. Trump sounds alarm on Ukraine offensive. U.S. exposes China's role in Russia's war machine. A potentially transformative development is emerging from Washington. We're talking about Tomahawk cruise missiles, between 20 and 50 of them, that could fundamentally alter Ukraine's strike capabilities. Stacy Pettyjohn, director of the defense program at the Center for a New American Security, shared these figures with the Financial Times. What makes this particularly significant is that these missiles wouldn't replace Ukraine's long-range drone program. They'd amplify it. But here's where it gets interesting. If this transfer happens, Ukrainian soldiers won't be the ones operating these weapons, at least not initially. American specialists would handle the systems, bypassing months of training and keeping Washington's hand firmly on the targeting decisions. A Western military official told the Financial Times that American contractors could deploy rapidly, bringing the missiles operational in short order. It's a pragmatic solution, though one that raises questions about sovereignty and control. So what could Ukraine actually hit with these weapons? Providing U.S. Tomahawk missiles could enable Ukrainian forces to inflict significant damage on Russian military facilities deep inside Russia. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War believe Ukraine's existing long-range strikes have already demonstrated something crucial. Russia's military-industrial complex is far more vulnerable than Moscow would like to admit. American Tomahawks would take this capability to an entirely different level. Now, some might assume this means direct U.S.-Russian confrontation on Ukrainian territory, an expansion of the battlefield that could spiral dangerously. But the Institute for the Study of War sees it differently. They argue this wouldn't escalate Russia's war. It would simply mirror what Russia has been doing to Ukraine all along.
U.S. Tomahawk missiles' long-range capabilities and sizable payload would enable the Ukrainian military to inflict substantial damage on key Russian military assets located deep within Russian territory, such as the Shahed drone factory in Yelabuga, Republic of Tatarstan, and the Ingles II air base in Saratov Oblast, from which Russia sorties the strategic bombers that fire air-launched cruise missiles during Russian strikes on Ukraine. From the Institute for the Study of War report.
And this is where the political pressure begins to build. Glenn Howard, president of the Saratoga Foundation, told the Kyiv Post something revealing. If America sends Tomahawks, Germany's position becomes untenable. Berlin has been sitting on its Taurus missiles, resisting mounting calls to transfer them. But we're already seeing cracks in that resistance. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz recently announced plans to discuss with the U.S. President, our joint efforts aimed at helping to end the war in Ukraine. The unspoken question hangs in the air. How long can hesitation survive when allies are taking action? Now let's shift to what's actually happening on the ground in eastern Ukraine. Russia's primary objective remains clear: capture Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. But recent claims of Russian advances, they're turning out to be fabrications, fake victories designed more for domestic consumption than military reality. For 2 weeks now, rain has been falling across Donbass, transforming the battlefield. Ukrainian drones, normally so effective, are grounded or struggling in the weather, and Russian commanders have noticed. They're pushing armored vehicles forward in mechanized assaults, something we've witnessed at least 3 times near Kostiantynivka and along the Donetsk-Dnipro border. But here's what's revealing about Russian tactics right now. The assault groups have shrunk. Where you'd previously see 3 or 4 soldiers moving together, now it's often just 1 or 2. Small infantry groups, sometimes individuals, trying to probe Ukrainian defenses. Despite all this pressure, Russia hasn't taken a single major city in Donbass this October. And Ukrainian forces aren't just defending. They're rewriting Russia's battle plans. Russians are bogged down near Pokrovsk, unable to secure their positions near Dobropilya, and facing a very real risk of encirclement.
Geolocation video recordings published on October 11th indicate that Ukrainian troops are holding or have recently advanced north of Bologivka, east of Veliky Burluk, an area in which Russian media previously claimed that the Russian Armed Forces troops maintain a presence, the Institute for the Study of War.
In the Kupiansk direction, Russian forces have hit a wall, no advances whatsoever. Ukrainian troops counterattacked near Radkivka, and military experts are now describing the Russian position as precarious, with genuine encirclement risk developing.
Russian command apparently does not consider the situation threatening for itself and continues to try to conduct assault operations, both in the Pokrovsk and Dobropol directions, within the framework of its main task, to reach the north of Pokrovsk and block it. Kostyantin Mashovets, Ukrainian war analyst.
The coming weeks will tell us more, but something significant is happening. Ukrainian armed forces aren't just holding defensive positions. They're showing determination that some military experts are characterizing as a transition from counterattacks to something larger, a full counteroffensive operation. And remarkably, this determination appears to have high-level support.
We'll be talking about the war with them, and we'll be talking about, they want to go offensive. I'll make a determination on that, but they would like to go offensive, you know that, and we'll have to make a determination.
Military analysts note that the Kremlin has always favored unconventional moves, misleading deployments, lateral force concentrations, misdirection learned from World War II tactics. They're attempting to confuse Ukrainian intelligence about where their main effort will fall. Whether these deception operations deliver the results Moscow expects, we'll know very soon. Now, for the economic dimension of this conflict, and it's becoming increasingly aggressive. President Trump is working to establish what he's calling a Ukraine Victory Fund, financed through new tariffs targeting China. The Telegraph reports that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed Trump's instructions: inform European allies that Washington supports a Ukrainian victory tariff, alternatively branded a Russian oil tariff, on Chinese goods, provided Europe joins the initiative. The numbers are staggering: a 500% tariff on Chinese imports, with revenues channeled directly into weapons procurement for Ukraine. Bessent also announced that photographic evidence is coming soon, provided by the Ukrainian government, showing Chinese-made components inside Russian drones used to attack Ukrainian cities. Beijing maintains its carefully constructed facade of neutrality, insisting it provides no military assistance to either side in this war. Yet it remains one of Moscow's closest political and economic allies, a partner that has never once condemned the invasion. NATO members have been less diplomatic in their assessment, labeling China a key enabler of Russia's war effort. The evidence is mounting. Chinese manufacturers didn't just help Russian military-industrial complexes expand drone production. They're now developing components specifically engineered for combat applications. Andriy Dmitrenko has been investigating this connection, and his findings reveal just how deep China's involvement really goes.
China is increasing the supply of drone components to Russia, writes the Washington Post. According to data from China's Customs Service, there has been a tenfold increase in the export volume of certain components from July to August 2025. Chinese manufacturers of commercial drones, which account for 80% of the global market in this segment, played a key role in this. Thanks to them, Russia has been able to ramp up the production of drones equipped with fiber optic systems.
China's strength in producing large quantities of components at cheap prices, and also rapidly coming up with new prototypes and technologies, gives Russia a significant advantage over Ukraine. This is having significant implications on the battlefield, as lighter and longer cables have allowed Russia to expand its range of attacks farther into territory controlled by Ukraine, from a publication by the Washington Post.
The Russian army is increasingly using fiber optic drones, as they are less vulnerable to electronic warfare measures, experts explain. According to an investigation conducted by Bloomberg in July 2025, several Chinese companies are directly collaborating with Russian military enterprises.
This shouldn't be seen as it was at the beginning of the war, as if components are being smuggled in suitcases and bags to Russia. No, this is a centralized supply, a network, if you will, an organized supply chain that operates continuously, like the tentacles of an octopus, delivering from various points around the world to Russian territory.
Ukraine's partners are systematically imposing restrictions on enterprises cooperating with the Russian military-industrial complex. However, to achieve a tangible effect, sanctions lists need to be significantly expanded. The main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense published information about military enterprises of the aggressor country that have not yet been sanctioned.
The main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense on the War and Sanctions portal publishes data on 145 enterprises that are part of or managed by the Technodynamika holding of the Russian state corporation Rostec. Despite the strategic importance of the holding for the Russian military-industrial complex, 86 out of 145 enterprises remain outside the sanctions of the sanctioning coalition countries. Among them are manufacturers of key components for Russian missile systems and armored vehicles. From a publication by the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on Facebook.
As long as Russia can spend colossal sums on continuing the war against Ukraine, it will keep seeking ways to supply its military-industrial complex. The problem can only be comprehensively resolved by depriving Russia of the ability to finance aggression. Kiev's partners are convinced. In the EU, discussions on the 19th sanctions package against Moscow continue. Brussels hopes to reach a consensus before the European Council, meeting scheduled for October 23rd, said EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas.
We are working on the 19th sanctions package to put more pressure on Russia to end this war. The Russian economy is already weakened, and we are further undermining it with our sanctions so that the Kremlin finally stops financing this war. We have 27 states, 27 different democracies, and so discussions continue.
On September 19th, the European Commission approved a list of proposals that will form the basis of the new sanctions package. These include a complete ban on Russian liquefied natural gas supplies to the EU until January 2027, expanding the sanctions list for Russia's shadow fleet, a ban on operations of Russian banks and financial institutions, including those operating in third countries, and measures against foreign enterprises cooperating with the Russian military-industrial complex. Reported by Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.
That's all for today. Thanks for standing with Ukraine and watching The Gaze. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories from a Ukrainian perspective. Goodbye.